All right, so the last video that I did for this regarding a design matrix or a engineering design matrix or decision matrix, as you could call it, was just all kind of punched together on a sheet of paper. And this is the way I would recommend doing it anyways, because you spend a lot less time than you would formatting it. So one thing I would probably do is across the top, we want to know what our categories were, right? So I would probably just come over here and I would use this cell and I would say this is categories. Okay. And you know what? I don't want to do that because I'm going to start over on this side. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to look at my product first. And, or you could say design or concept. And now you could come down here and you could say like concept one. And then you could come down here and say concept. And what I would do is leave this blank. And maybe you just type image or do something to remind yourself that you need to, to put something in there. Okay. So I'll just type in I or IMG and I'll come back and replace that. Concept two. And then I'll do the same thing, IMG, then concept three and IMG. All right. You're going to need more space for your image, of course. So what you're going to do is probably stretch these cells. And this is going to work the same in Google Sheets as it does in Excel, which is what I'm using right now. Okay. And then in formatting, when you're done, you're probably going to want to go ahead and do some formatting. Maybe you're going to bold some of these things, or you're going to do some highlights or something else. But that would give you the basics, right? So then you, after that, are going to go ahead with your categories right across the top. Okay. So in this case, you could skip a cell or do whatever you need to. You can make that bigger right there. One thing you can do in these cells, which is handy, is you can come and select the cell, come up here and do center, or merge and center also works. And then there's also a justify, right? So like this, and justify is going to move that up or down. And the reason I'm doing it right now is once I go ahead and grab my image, it's going to automatically center it in that cell. Okay. So, and I could do any image I wanted to. Like I could come over here and I'll just go to shoot like an image of a gable roof. Okay. And say this is not the product by any means, but I could go copy image and come back to Excel, delete this, right click and paste it. And it's huge, right? We don't want that. So we're going to shrink it down. And that's the concept right there. Okay. You can neaten that up with what's the program I'm talking about? Google Sheets. Sometimes it's a little finicky about doing this. And it wants to, and one thing I've learned is that you can take this and you can post it right on a Google Doc. And then you can snip it and put it there. And then you can embed these images right over where you want them to be. Okay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just type in categories. Formatting does count big time here from a neatness standpoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the categories I've already decided on. So going back to the sheet that I made, I said safety. And now I'm going to also put in weight. And then I'm going to do the second category, which is appearance. And I'm going to type in weight. You have to assign a weight to each one of these. Cost, weight, and functionality. Remember that when you're doing this is completely unique to everyone's own work. Okay. So maybe I'll italicize that. Maybe that, this to me looks kind of like a little bit messy because this is all caps. So I might want to go back and make that lowercase. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on the formatting aspect of it, but a super quick and easy way to do this is, or thing that you can do along the way, go ahead and spread your cells out. You don't need that much space for these cells that say weight. However, actually I need a little bit more space because I need to say what the weight is, and I haven't assigned that yet. Okay. Function, the word's getting cut off, so go ahead and stretch that out. Functional, functionality. What do we mean by functionality? We mean how it works. How well does it work? Okay. So I'll bold that and center, and I'll bold and center. And again, like I'm saying, I'm telling you, don't worry too much about the formatting as you go, but it does kind of make a difference. Okay. So in this case, the weight, I go back and I look and I say, well, I have 4 categories. Okay, so if I had 5 categories, I can have 5 weights. If I have 6 categories, I can have 6 weights, but they're all different. So in this case, my weight for safety is going to equal 4 categories, so it can only be a 4, 3, 2, or 1. And I've decided that safety is the most important thing with whatever product I'm designing. So if it's the most important, if it's the number 1 most important, then you use the opposite number, right? There's 4 categories. I believe it's the first most important, so I type in a 4. All right, and then this one, I say appearance. What I did on the table, I said, I thought that was the second most important, because if it doesn't look good, no one will buy it. I thought cost was the least important. It depends on what you're designing, what your product is. Cost can be significant, or it can be of low significance. Okay. And so now I've pretty much set up my process here. Okay. So what I'm going to have here, and I want to do one more category or heading, which is my total. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to do to sort of set up my table is I'm going to do a ranking or rating, is what I would rather call it. Now I might actually do this in a different table later on because now my cells are properly formatted. So I could say 4 equals excellent. And I could say 3 equals acceptable, right? And then I could say 2 is equal to approaching acceptability, and 1, let's say, is equal to poor / or unacceptable. Again, you might go ahead and do this in a different layout or table format or something else, but as long as people can see it, okay, that's the biggest, most important thing. So everything is kind of looking pretty well, and then this is the point where I would go in and I would say for whatever design I'm looking at. So let me go back, and if I go to my my individual concepts, okay, these are where I would literally take these images and copy them in. So there's my first concept teeter-totter. There's my second concept teeter-totter. There's my third concept teeter-totter, okay? And so going back here, these are the images that I would then be inserting over here under concept 1 in the image, the second concept, and the third concept, okay? So ignore that this is a roof picture. It could be, you could take 3 different things. You could use this in architecture and take 3 different roof designs, and then your categories can completely change. It could be appearance, it could be complexity, it could be cost, again, right? The more materials equals more cost. But the whole purpose of this is just to see how to set up a table, okay? So there's not going to be anything here in this categories cell. And then under this, I'm going to come in, and so under each category, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a rating. So if I looked at my first, let's say my first concept, I might look at this and I can say, okay, from a safety standpoint, one thing that I thought about is there's this pin and it's connected to a chain so people don't steal it. And now I look at this and I say, okay, somebody made a set of nunchucks, right? You got a kid who pulls this pin out and he's whipping the thing around. And I see that as a safety issue. So I'm going to say that is a 2. Okay. And then I look at appearance, and first of all, I just kind of come down the ranks. And I did cover this in the last in the sort of paper video. And I look at this and I can say, well, how does this look? Remember, I'm comparing 1 to 2 to 3. And if I look at these, this one is really goofed up with all these mechanical parts. This one is pretty nice and streamlined. And this one kind of to me looks a little bit hack jobish. So I might say, this is like a 2 as well. All right. So I'm going to go down and I'll say, well, it's a 2 in appearance. All right. So now so far we have an equal score. Okay. Cost. I'm going to come back down and look at this. And again, I'm evaluating concept number 1 versus number 2 versus number 3. Concept number 1, if I look at these comparatively, this one is probably the cheapest. Simple pin to put through a hole and move this thing back and forth. This one has this gear train, very expensive. I have chain, I have gears, I have cranks, I have all these things. This one, a couple of pins, a couple different sizes of material. So I would say that that's somewhere in between. So this is very expensive, and this one is not expensive at all. And in this case, the less expensive it is, right, the better it seems to be. So I would say that that's a 4 of all of them. And then functionality. This is, to me, going to be interesting if I evaluate these designs. How does this work? Okay, well, number 1, they have to pull the pin up and then they have to slide this plank. Number 2, from a functionality perspective, all I do is turn a crank. That's pretty great. I could even do it sitting on the teeter-totter. Number 3, I just have to pull the pin, and it's kind of like an umbrella button. Like when I pull this out, it just snaps in at the next one. So that works pretty easily. But the easiest one, from a functionality, or maybe the worst one, is number 1. And I don't think it's necessarily an acceptable solution. So from a functionality perspective, I'm going to say that that's like a 1. So this is the significance here of using this design matrix, okay? When I look at this, and I'm just going to make up something, all right? So for my second product, this is where I'm going to really focus over here. And I'm not going to take you well, I should probably take you through the whole thing, but on the second one, I'm going to go back to safety. This is very, very safe because all I have to do is turn a crank and that moves everything and everything is concealed. So I can go back here and I can say that is a 4. Appearance. Again, we looked at it and we said it's a little bit kind of janky. It's a little, this is a nice clean look. This is a nice clean look. Got a lot of stuff happening. Maybe it looks kind of cool and scientific. So maybe that is a 2, right? And then cost, we know that is going to be exceptionally expensive because of all that gear train stuff. So we said a 1, and we know the functionality will be phenomenal on that. All right. And now I'm going to focus on the third product. Okay. So I don't care about any of these weights until I'm all said and done. Okay. So next product that I'm focusing on, okay, is product number 3. So again, I'm thinking of those same things: safety, functionality, cost, appearance. This one is pretty safe, I think, right? Pull the pin and, I guess you could get your finger kind of mashed in there. But appearance, to me, when I went back and looked at that, I think that is the most professional looking one as compared to these. So I would give that a high score. I would say I think that's very professional. Cost, it's not as expensive as the first one or the second one without all those mechanical parts, but it's definitely more expensive from the first one. So I'm going to say 3. And then functionality, I think that will work equally as well, maybe just a little bit, not quite as well. So now I've gone ahead and I've ignored any of the weights. I've just gone through and given it ratings. Okay. Now this is the next part. We're using a weight because we've already said that safety is the most important thing. So it has the highest weight of all the categories, and they're all different weights. So in this case, what I use is this 4 as a multiplier for anything in this category. And I use this 2 as a multiplier for anything in the appearance category. And the 1 as a multiplier for anything in the cost category. And a 3 for everything in the as a multiplier for anything in this category. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go, okay, just do the math. 2 times 4. And the cool thing about a spreadsheet is that you could actually have just put values in here. You could say like equals, this would be, to write the formula, you'd have to get the weight out of here. But if you typed in 4 right here, you can make, you can type in a formula, go equals, and then you could say like this times, and then you would do this before you ever put the values in, like so, and you get an 8 right there. All right, so that's just something though that you can do. So right here, I can say, okay, that's an 8. 2 times a weight of 2 is a 4. 4 times a weight of 1 is a 4. And 1 times a weight of 3 is a 3. And what I might do then is come back here and drop some highlighting or bolding or center everything so it really jumps out at us, okay? And now, again, same thing, weight of 4. So 4 times 4 is what? 16. And we have over here, it scored a 2 times a weight of 2 is equal to a 4. And then a 1 times a weight of 1 is a 1. Not a very good score there. And then a 4 times a weight of 3 is a 12. And again, what I might do then is come back and maybe I'll pour a different color into this one just to make it stand out, right? So I have this and this and this and this. All right, and then the final thing, and we're just about done here, is do the next series of multipliers. 3 times the weight of 4 is a 12. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times the weight of 2 is an 8. 3 times the weight of 1 is a 3. And then 3 times the weight of 3 is a 9. So this is wild because almost all the numbers came out different, and sometimes that never really happens. Okay, pick a nice color that stands out to you. You don't have to do this. I mean, the formatting is completely up to every person and every style and everything else, okay? And now we're going to go to our totals, and all I have to do is add the highlighted or slash weighted numbers. So in this case, I have 8 plus 4 plus 4 is 16 plus 3 is, concept 1 scored a 19. All right, maybe I want to go ahead and make that nice and big. All right. And maybe I want to go ahead and center it, and that would look nice, and justify it. That would look nice, okay? And then concept 2, 16 and 4 is 20, 21. 21 and 12 is 33, okay? That looks nice. Let's make it big and bold and everything else, and center it and justify it, and that looks good. And then this one, 12 and 8 is 20. 20 and 3 and another 9 is, what is that, 32. And again, I'll just go ahead and do that, and do this, and do this. And so now I should have some very, very quantitative information, whereas before I looked at these, again, ignore the house here. Let's just get rid of the house. If I had these saved right here, these images individually, I would have just stuck them in. But in this case, you would have those images to look back to. Concept number 3, concept number 2, concept number 1. Since I drew it, I can kind of ballpark that, and I can say, well, number 3 was the one that I evolved to the most. After doing number 1, number 2 improved number 1 quite a bit, and I can see that. The improvements I made, and again, when I drew this, I stepped away, thought about it for a while, came back, and then concept number 2 got to be a little bit definitely better, almost, twice as good, really, 40% better by the way it scored. 33 is much better than 19, so this one makes me go kick number 1 out, but let's see how number 3 scores. And you say, okay, 32. Well, wait a minute. So now I should be picking number 2, right? Not necessarily. What if you have a tie? Well, that whole point of all of this weighting is so that you can go back and find some identifiers in what you perceive to be the most meaningful thing. Like concept number 2 In the most important category, safety, for me, outscored very drastically number one and pretty significantly number two, which leads me to say, okay, well, I think that's a no brainer. But in terms of cost, it was uh, much more costly, let's say, lower score, meaning it didn't do as well on cost number as number one did, and it was still not close to this one. Okay, yes, maybe it functioned a little bit better, but this one functioned horribly, and this one, number three, functioned pretty acceptably, as I would say. We could have only gotten a 12, and it got a 9. That's not bad. So this is where some of these things, needing to, again, what I recommend is when you finish this, you step away from it and you look back and you come back and say, like, does this mean I automatically go with number two? What could make that difference? What if the cost of number two was $1,000 and the cost of number three was $450? Is this much more? Is this much more meaningful? Yeah, it's hugely meaningful, which means that I'm willing to go ahead and sacrifice, a point to go ahead and make it much more reasonable from a cost perspective. Okay, so again, even though number two stacks up, what you'll find is, it's not a magic bullet. It's not a silver bullet to say this is the perfect solution. But in evaluating these, number three to me appears to be a better solution, even though it's 1 point different. So that's how the design matrix works. Hopefully that gave you some information about putting it together. One thing I'll say is, as far as cell formatting, if I go to a print and a print preview, wherever that is, I'm on the wrong thing completely. But when I do a print preview on this, it is print previewing right now. There's no grid lines. This might make it a little bit difficult to comprehend. And so from a formatting perspective, you might come back, and what I could do is does it all fit on one page? I can tell you right now, it's not going to, it's spilling over. But another thing you might do is you might come up here and you can go to layout, and you can go to, where is it? Table or something, insert formulas. There's a grid lines, where if I hit print grid lines, which I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to leave it alone. But there's a couple different ways you can get to there, or right here under table, you can say all borders. And now if I go back to file, print, okay, maybe this looks a little bit more confusing, but or I can pick specific borders. Okay, so I don't need those borders right there. But I hope that helps. Good luck with it.